forgotten corner. In a forgotten corner of the sprawling metropolis, where the shadows danced with whispers of forgotten tales, there existed a figure whose name struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest souls. Jus, the leader of the notorious hyena gang, prowled the dark underbelly of the city with an air of ruthless dominance. At 55 years old, Jus carried the heavy burden of his past, a past that had left deep scars on his soul, twisting him into the fearsome and bitter man he had become. Jus had never known the warmth of a family or the comfort of a loving home. Abandoned by his parents at the tender age of 10, he had been left to fend for himself on the unforgiving streets. Despite the hardships, Jus displayed remarkable intelligence and academic prowess, a spark of potential that could have led him to a different life. But society, cruel and unforgiving, never embraced him. His perceived ugliness and awkwardness made him an outcast, rejected and ridiculed by those who should have offered him support. Yet amidst the cruelty of the world, there was a glimmer of light, a young and beautiful girl named Ray, whose kindness and compassion ignited a flame of hope within Jus' cold heart. She was the only one who saw beyond his outward appearance, who treated him with the dignity and respect he so desperately craved. Ray's gentle words and caring gestures awakened emotions in Jus that he had long buried beneath layers of pain and bitterness. Summoning all his courage, Jus confessed his love to Ray, laying bare his soul in a moment of vulnerability. But his declaration of affection was met with rejection, a rejection that shattered what little hope he had left. Ray's refusal, though kind, was a cruel reminder that the world was not as he had wished it to be. Crushed by the weight of unrequited love, Jus' gentle nature began to wither, replaced by a growing sense of bitterness and resentment. The turning point in Jus' life came at the age of 20, on the day of Ray's wedding. Consumed by jealousy and rage, Jus watched from the shadows as the woman he loved pledged her heart to another. He had always known that Ray's love was unattainable, but seeing her with another man drove him to the brink of madness. Fueled by despair and a deep-seated need for revenge, Jus stormed the ceremony, his heart seething with fury. With trembling hands, Jus drew a pistol from beneath his tattered coat and unleashed a torrent of bullets upon the unsuspecting couple. The groom fell first, his life snuffed out in an instant by the merciless hail of gunfire. But Jus' wrath knew no bounds, and he turned his weapon upon Ray, his former beloved, her white gown stained crimson with blood. The echoes of his violence reverberated through the air, a symphony of death and destruction that shattered the tranquility of the wedding hall. Panic and terror engulfed the guests as they fled in all directions, desperate to escape the horror that had unfolded before their eyes. Jus, however, stood amidst the carnage, his eyes devoid of remorse or regret. He was no longer the rejected outcast or the broken-hearted lover. He was a creature of darkness, a predator lurking in the shadows, ready to unleash his fury upon the world. With the lifeless bodies of the newlyweds at his feet, Jus retreated into the darkness, his soul consumed by despair. But his descent into madness was far from over. In the solitude of his lair, he embarked upon a twisted ritual of self-mutilation and degradation, as if trying to etch his suffering into his very being. Gazing into a cracked mirror, Jus saw reflected the face of a monster, a visage twisted by hatred and despair. Gripping a rusted knife in trembling hands, he carved deep gouges into his flesh, each cut a painful reminder of the agony that consumed his soul. With each stroke of the blade, he sought to immortalize his suffering, turning his body into a grotesque canvas of torment. And in a final act of madness, he tattooed Ray's picture on his face, a permanent reminder of the love he had lost and the pain that had driven him to the brink of insanity. The savage hunger. But Jus' depravity knew no bounds, and in a perverse act of self-destruction, he turned to cannibalism. With trembling hands, he tore into the flesh of the deceased, his teeth sinking into the tender flesh with savage hunger. The taste of blood and flesh filled his mouth, a sickening reminder of the darkness that lurked within his soul. And as he feasted upon the remains of his victims, Jus felt a perverse sense of satisfaction, a fleeting moment of twisted pleasure amidst the sea of despair. Over time, Jus' descent into madness became complete. He had forsaken all that was good and pure in his life, embracing the darkness that had consumed him. His transformation from a gentle soul into a ruthless predator was now complete, and he emerged as the leader of the notorious hyena gang, a gang that would soon become the scourge of the city. Under just ruthless command, the disparate hyena groups of the city were brought together, their strengths consolidated under a single banner of terror and chaos. Elected as their leader, Just's influence extended far beyond the confines of Hyania, infiltrating every corner of the continent like a malignant cancer, spreading its tendrils of corruption and depravity wherever it went. His gang became a nefarious entity, a scourge upon society, executing a range of criminal activities with impunity. From political assassinations to bombings and targeted killings of dissenting voices, there was no limit to the depths of depravity to which they would sink in their pursuit of power and dominance. But perhaps most chilling of all was their involvement in the illicit arms trade, peddling illegal weapons on an unprecedented scale and fueling the flames of conflict and bloodshed wherever they went. Within the criminal underworld, whispers circulated about Just's unparalleled power, his name spoken in hushed tones of fear and reverence by those who dared to defy him. One notable incident that sent shockwaves through the city occurred when a hyena, leading a faction specialized in assassinations, approached Just with a bold proposal to eliminate Senator Haisu of Leopardia, a man whose outspoken criticism of Just's reign had earned him a place at the top of the gang's hit list. The hyena said, "I will lead the assassination group and kill Senator Haisu of Leopardia. You don't need to participate in this operation." Unfazed by the audacity of the hyena's proposal, Just greeted him with a chilling laughter, a cold, mirthless sound that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. "You," he scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain, before swiftly drawing his pistol and delivering a fatal shot to the hyena's head, leaving his lifeless body crumpled at his feet. For Just, there was no room for hesitation or doubt, no place for weakness or uncertainty. He ruled with an iron fist, his word law and his will absolute, brooking no dissent or disobedience from those who served under him. What set Just apart from other leaders of the criminal underworld was his hands-on approach to leadership. Unlike many who preferred to delegate their dirty work to underlings, Just was not content to sit back and watch from the shadows as others carried out his bidding. No, Just preferred to lead by example, personally undertaking missions alongside his pack of hyenas, ensuring the success of each operation with his own two hands. Whether it was a high-profile assassination or a daring heist, Just was always at the forefront, his presence striking fear into the hearts of all who crossed his path. And so, under Just's iron-fisted rule, the hyena gang flourished, casting a pervasive shadow over the city, leaving a trail of chaos and fear in its wake. But for Just, the darkness was not just a means to an end, it was a reflection of the pain and anguish that dwelled within his own heart, a constant reminder of the love he had lost and the humanity he had sacrificed in its wake. Yet, despite his power and influence, there was a void within Just that could never be filled. The love he had once known, the love he had lost, haunted him like a specter, a ghost that whispered to him in the darkest hours of the night. It was a love that had driven him to madness, a love that had turned him into the monster he had become. And so, Just continued to walk the path of darkness, a path paved with the blood of his enemies and the tears of the innocent. He was a figure of terror, a symbol of the chaos that lurked beneath the surface of the city. But within the depths of his tortured soul, there remained a glimmer of the man he had once been, a man who had loved, who had hoped, and who had dreamed of a different life. But that life was gone now, consumed by the darkness that had claimed him. And as Just stood at the helm of his gang, a king in the underworld, he knew that there was no turning back. The path he had chosen was one of destruction, a path that would lead him to his own inevitable end. For in the end, even the darkest of souls must face the consequences of their actions. And for Just, those consequences would come not from the hands of his enemies, but from the shadows of his own past, a past that would one day rise up to claim him, just as he had claimed the lives of so many others. Carnage unleashed. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling urban landscape of Hyania. In the heart of the city, amidst the labyrinthine alleys and shadowy corners, lay the domain of Just, the enigmatic leader of a notorious hyena gang. Under his iron-fisted rule, the gang had risen to unprecedented heights of power and infamy, establishing a reign of terror that gripped the entire continent. Jus, a figure shrouded in darkness and mystery, had transformed the disparate hyena factions into a unified force to be reckoned with. His ascent to power was marked by ruthless ambition and cunning strategy as he orchestrated a series of calculated moves to consolidate his influence. From the murky underworld of Hyenia to the highest echelons of political power, Jus' reach extended far and wide, instilling fear and awe in equal measure. At the core of Jus' power lay the unwavering loyalty of his gang members. Each hyena was bound to him by a code of honor that transcended mere allegiance. It was a pact sealed with blood and forged in the crucible of shared adversity. They were more than just comrades in arms. They were brothers bound by a common purpose, willing to lay down their lives at their leader's command. What truly set Jus' gang apart was their unparalleled expertise in the art of warfare. Armed with an array of deadly weapons and honed to perfection in the crucible of battle, they were a force to be reckoned with. Their marksmanship was legendary, their accuracy within a range of 100 meters unmatched. They moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, executing their missions with ruthless efficiency and deadly precision. Yet, it was not just their skill with weapons that made them formidable, it was their unwavering loyalty to their leader. Each member of Jus' gang was bound by a solemn oath, a pact of loyalty that transcended mere allegiance. They were willing to sacrifice everything for their leader, to lay down their lives in defense of the gang's secrets, and to ensure the success of their missions, no matter the cost. To enforce this code of loyalty, Jus had implemented a sinister insurance mechanism, a Zentua capsule installed in the mouths of each member. When bitten, the capsule released a lethal poison, paralyzing the nervous system and ensuring a swift and excruciatingly painful demise. It was a grim reminder of the consequences of betrayal, a testament to the lengths to which Jus would go to maintain control over his empire. But for all his power and influence, Jus remained a figure shrouded in mystery. His past was a closely guarded secret, his true motives known only to himself. Some whispered that he had risen from the depths of poverty and despair, clawing his way to the top through sheer force of will and ruthless determination. Others claimed that he was a puppet master, pulling the strings of power from the shadows, orchestrating events with cold and calculating precision. Whatever the truth may be, one thing was certain: Jus was a force to be reckoned with, a figure whose name inspired fear and awe in equal measure. His reign of terror had cast a long shadow over the continent, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in its wake. And as long as he remained at the helm of his gang, his grip on power would remain unchallenged, his influence unassailable. In the dimly lit confines of a secluded hideout in the heart of Hyenia, Jus, the enigmatic leader of the notorious Hyena gang, found himself embroiled in a clandestine mission of unprecedented scale and consequence. It was a month before the tragic assassination of the guerrilla's president, and Jus stood at the epicenter of a covert operation that would send shockwaves reverberating through the corridors of power. In the hushed confines of the hideout, Jus engaged in secretive conversations with a shadowy figure, a high-ranking individual within the guerrillist establishment. Together, they meticulously crafted a plan to navigate the treacherous waters of conspiracy and deception, their every move shrouded in secrecy and subterfuge. 50 hyenas. At Jus' command, his formidable gang of 50 hyenas was strategically divided into 10 discrete groups, each tasked with a specific role in the unfolding operation. Their mission: to infiltrate the prosperous nation of guerrillas and execute a plan of unparalleled audacity and ambition. To facilitate their covert entry into guerrillas, the hyenas assumed the guise of affluent businessmen, their demeanor polished and their intentions concealed beneath a veneer of sophistication. Boarding separate flights from Hyenia to guerrillas, they blended seamlessly into the sea of travelers, their true identities hidden beneath the facades of respectability. Aware of guerrillas' stringent gun control measures, Jus and his cohorts opted not to carry firearms initially, knowing that such overt displays of weaponry would attract unwanted attention. Instead, they relied on a more discreet approach, biding their time and awaiting the opportune moment to strike. But Jus, ever the master strategist, had foreseen the need for firepower in the execution of their plan. To circumvent guerrillas' strict regulations, he orchestrated a daring scheme involving clandestine shipments of weapons via boats, covertly protected by a network of contacts within the shadowy corridors of power. The chosen rendezvous point for the weapons-laden vessel was the Hurue Seine, a port renowned for its clandestine nature and lack of scrutiny. Here, under the cover of darkness, the hyenas gathered to receive their arsenal, each member armed with 2 submachine guns and an ample supply of ammunition, their resolve steeled for the task that lay ahead. With their weapons secured and their resolve unyielding, the hyenas proceeded to their next objective, securing accommodations within the heart of Gorillast's bustling capital. Taking up residence in a luxurious hotel, they maintained their charade as affluent entrepreneurs, their true intentions hidden beneath layers of deception and deceit. As the days passed and the fateful moment drew near, tension hung heavy in the air, thick with anticipation and foreboding. The hyenas, poised on the precipice of history, awaited the signal to set their plan into motion, a plan that would shake Gorillast to its very core and plunge the nation into chaos and turmoil. For Jess and his gang, the shadows of conspiracy loomed large, their every move shrouded in secrecy and subterfuge. But as they prepared to embark on their journey into the heart of Gorillast's power, they knew that they stood on the brink of destiny, a destiny that would shape the course of history for generations to come. In the heart of the chaos that engulfed the streets of Gorillast, Jess and his ruthless hyena gang emerged as the architects of mayhem. Armed to the teeth and fueled by a malevolent determination, they unleashed a torrent of violence upon the unsuspecting secret police, their submachine guns spitting fire and lead with deadly precision. The air reverberated with the deafening roar of gunfire as Jess and his gang descended upon their targets with ruthless efficiency. Bullets tore through the air, finding their marks with chilling accuracy, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The once orderly streets of Gorillast became a battleground, bathed in the crimson hue of spilled blood and echoing with the anguished cries of the fallen. For Jess, this was more than a mere assassination attempt. It was a statement of power, a declaration of dominance over the forces of law and order. With each pull of the trigger, he sought to assert his control and instill fear in the hearts of his enemies. And as the bodies of the secret police littered the streets, it became abundantly clear that his reign of terror would brook no opposition. As the battle raged on, the secret police found themselves caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse, desperately seeking cover as they used machete against their assailants. But for every agent that fell, 2 more seemed to take their place, their ranks bolstered by the relentless onslaught of Jess' hyena gang. Despite their valiant efforts, the secret police soon found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the attack. Their tactical defenses crumbled under the relentless barrage of gunfire, leaving them exposed and vulnerable to the merciless onslaught of their adversaries. But amidst the chaos and carnage, a small band of secret agents refused to yield to the tide of violence. Armed with nothing but their wits and their weapons, they stood their ground against the onslaught, determined to protect their president at any cost. But for all their bravery, the odds were stacked against them, and it was only a matter of time before they too found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer force of Jess' onslaught. As the battle reached its crescendo, the fate of Gorillast hung in the balance, teetering on the brink of oblivion. Jess stood at the helm of his gang, his eyes gleaming with a cold, ruthless determination. This was his moment, his time to seize control and bend the world to his will. And with the power of his gang behind him, there was nothing that could stand in his way. As the echoes of gunfire slowly faded into the distance, the city of Gorillast lay in ruins, its streets littered with the bodies of the fallen. And at the center of it all stood Jess, a figure of fear and awe, his grip on power unchallenged, his influence unassailable. But even as he basked in the glow of his victory, Jess knew that his work was far from over. There were still challenges to be faced, enemies to be defeated, and a world to be conquered. And as he looked out over the devastation he had wrought, he knew that there was no turning back. The Battle of Gorillast. The aftermath of the brutal assault orchestrated by Jess and his hyena gang left President Natsu reeling in shock and grief. The once tranquil streets of Gorillast now bore witness to the grim aftermath of violence, with the echoes of gunfire still ringing in the air like a haunting melody of tragedy. Bodies of fallen secret agents and civilians lay scattered across the blood-soaked pavement, their lifeless forms a stark reminder of the price of conflict. The acrid scent of smoke and gunpowder filled the air, mingling with the distant wails of the wounded and the dying. President Natsu stood amidst the chaos, his heart heavy with sorrow for the lives lost under his watch. His usually composed demeanor was shattered, replaced by a cold fury that burned in his eyes. He had seen war before, had faced down enemies of the state, but this was different. This was a direct assault on everything he had sworn to protect, and the weight of that realization pressed down on him like a crushing force. Around him, the surviving secret agents regrouped, their expressions grim but resolute. Their ranks had been decimated, their numbers dwindling from the initial 10 to a few. Each of them bore the marks of battle, torn uniforms, bloodied faces, and eyes that had seen too much. They looked to their president, their leader, for guidance, for some semblance of hope in this darkest of hours. Natsu's assistant, a man named Darius, approached him, his voice tinged with urgency and concern. "Mr. President," he began, his tone pleading, "we need to get you to safety. The situation is dire, and we can't afford to lose you. The nation needs you alive." But President Natsu felt an unyielding sense of duty pulling him toward the front line of the battle. His people were dying, his city was burning, and he would not, stand idly by while others fought and bled in his stead. Ignoring Darius's protests, he made a resolute decision to join the remaining secret agents in their fight against the ruthless attackers, his mind consumed by a singular purpose: to protect his people at any cost. "Darius," Natsu said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade, "I appreciate your concern, but my place is here. I cannot, in good conscience, run from this fight. I will stand with my people, and I will fight for my nation, no matter the cost." "But, Mr. President," Darius began, his voice trembling with emotion, but Natsu silenced him with a steely gaze. "No more words, Darius," Natsu interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "You can either stand with me or fall back. But I will fight." With that, President Natsu seized a blood-stained machete from a fallen secret agent, a silent vow of defiance burning bright in his eyes. In that moment, he shed the mantle of a leader and embraced the role of a warrior, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of his nation. The surviving secret agents, battered but unbroken, rallied around their leader, their resolve strengthened by his unwavering commitment to their cause. They had fought alongside Natsu for years, had seen him lead with wisdom and strength, but this was something different. This was a man ready to lay down his life for his people, and it inspired them in ways they had never thought possible. Even Darius, torn between fear for his leader's safety and admiration for his courage, found himself drawn into the protective circle that surrounded their leader. Though reluctant to expose the president to further danger, he understood the gravity of the situation and stood ready to fight alongside him until the bitter end. Across the battlefield, Jess and his hyena gang paused in their relentless assault, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. The sight of the president wielding a machete with steely resolve sent a chill down their spines, igniting a flicker of doubt in their ruthless hearts. But they quickly shook off their hesitation, their predatory instincts driving them forward with renewed ferocity. With a guttural roar, Jess signaled his gang to resume their attack, their weapons poised to unleash a fresh wave of violence upon their unsuspecting prey. The hyenas, emboldened by their leader's command, charged forward with renewed intensity, their eyes gleaming with bloodlust. But the president stood firm, his gaze unwavering as he raised his machete high, a silent challenge to the forces of darkness that sought to engulf their nation. The tension in the air was palpable, a thin, fragile thread stretched to its breaking point. Both sides knew that what would come next could very well decide the fate of Guerrillist. The clash that followed was fierce and unforgiving, a symphony of steel and gunfire that reverberated through the streets of Guerrillist. President Natsu fought with a courage born of desperation, his every strike fueled by the memory of those who had fallen before him. Beside him, the surviving secret agents fought with equal fervor, their determination unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. "Stay close to the president," one of the agents shouted, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of battle. "We can't let them break our line." Natsu, his muscles straining with each swing of the machete, cut down an advancing hyena with a swift, brutal stroke. The creature fell to the ground with a guttural snarl, its lifeblood pooling at Natsu's feet. The president barely had time to catch his breath before another attacker was upon him, but he met the challenge head-on, his reflexes honed by years of martial training. "Mr. President, on your right," Darius shouted, his voice filled with panic as he threw a machete at an approaching hyena. The creature fell with a howl of pain, but the victory was short-lived as more hyenas surged forward to take its place. Natsu turned just in time to block a savage blow aimed at his head, his machete meeting the hyena's gun with a shower of sparks. The force of the impact sent a jolt of pain up his arm, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on, driving the creature back with a series of powerful strikes. "We need to regroup," another agent called out, his voice strained with effort as he parried a flurry of attacks. "They're pushing us back. We hold the line here," Natsu commanded, his voice like iron. "We give no ground." For a few minutes, the battle raged on, each side locked in a deadly dance of death and destruction. The air was thick with the stench of blood and sweat, the sounds of battle blending into a chaotic symphony of violence. The president and his allies fought with everything they had, their movements growing more desperate as the tide of battle slowly turned against them. But despite their best efforts, the president and his allies found themselves slowly being pushed back by the relentless onslaught of Jus and his hyena gang. With every passing moment, their hope dwindled, replaced by a grim acceptance of their inevitable fate. "Mr. President," Darius gasped, his voice choked with exhaustion as he struggled to fend off an advancing hyena. "We can't hold them off much longer. We need to fall back." But Natsu shook his head, his expression resolute. "We can't retreat now, Darius," he replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "If we fall back, the people of Gorillist will have no one left to defend them. We fight to the end." Another hyena lunged at Natsu, its eyes wild with fury, but the president met it with a swift, brutal strike that sent it crashing to the ground. He could feel his strength waning, his muscles aching with fatigue, but he refused to yield. "Not here, not now. We're with you, Mr. President," one of the agents shouted, his voice filled with unwavering loyalty as he fought back against the encroaching horde. "We'll fight to the last breath." Natsu managed a grim smile, his heart swelling with pride at the bravery of his men. "Then let's give them hell," he said, his voice low and filled with determination. For a moment, it seemed as though their collective resolve might be enough to turn the tide. The remaining agents fought with renewed vigor, their blades flashing through the air as they cut down the advancing hyenas with deadly precision. Natsu fought like a man possessed, his every movement a testament to his unyielding will and determination. But the numbers were against them. Despite their valiant efforts, Jess and his gang were simply too many, their ferocity too great. One by one, the agents began to fall, their bodies crumpling to the ground under the relentless assault. "Mr. President, we're being overrun," Darius cried out, his voice tinged with desperation as he fought off yet another attacker. "We can't hold them back." Natsu's heart sank as he realized the truth of Darius's words. They were outmatched, outnumbered, and out of time. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, he refused to surrender. "Keep fighting," he shouted, his voice hoarse with effort. "We fight until the end." But the end was coming, and it was coming fast. Jess, sensing victory, redoubled his efforts, his gang pressing the attack with renewed fury. The agents were pushed back, their formation crumbling as they were overwhelmed by the sheer force of the hyena's onslaught. The fall of defiance. In the heart of the chaotic battleground, amidst the cacophony of gunfire and the clash of steel against steel, President Natsu stood as a beacon of defiance against the marauding hyena gang. With every fluid movement, he epitomized the embodiment of martial mastery, his actions a mesmerizing display of lethal precision and unwavering resolve. As the hyenas attempted to encircle him, their movements fueled by a frenzied determination, President Natsu remained steadfast, his focus unbroken. With an almost supernatural agility, he evaded their attacks, his form flowing seamlessly from defense to offense in a lethal dance of combat. The first hyena, emboldened by the chaos surrounding them, lunged forward with reckless abandon, seeking to catch the president off guard. But to its dismay, President Natsu anticipated its move with a preternatural instinct, sidestepping its attack with a graceful pivot. In one fluid motion, he countered with a devastating roundhouse kick, the force of which sent the hyena hurtling through the air before crashing to the ground, its skull fractured by the sheer impact of the blow. With the first assailant incapacitated, President Natsu swiftly turned his attention to the second hyena, his movements a blur of calculated precision. As it lunged towards him, teeth bared in a snarl of aggression, he effortlessly ducked under its attack, his body moving with the fluidity of a seasoned martial artist. In a heartbeat, he retaliated with a powerful elbow strike to the creature's midsection, the force of which drove the air from its lungs in a pained wheeze of agony. Undeterred by the president's formidable prowess, the third hyena hesitated for a fleeting moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossing its predatory gaze. Sensing its momentary lapse in focus, President Natsu seized the opportunity with lightning speed, closing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. With a rapid series of strikes that seemed almost too swift for the eye to follow, he unleashed a barrage of blows upon the hyena, each strike finding its mark with deadly accuracy. With a final, sweeping motion of his machete, President Natsu delivered a decisive blow, severing the creature's spine with a single, precise strike. As the hyena crumpled to the ground in a lifeless heap, its body twitching in the throes of death, the president stood tall amidst the chaos, his expression a mask of steely determination. Yet, even as President Natsu emerged victorious from his confrontation with the hyena assailants, the battle raged on around him, the sounds of gunfire and the clash of steel serving as a grim reminder of the perilous situation in which they found themselves. Despite his formidable skills, the hyena gang continued to press their advantage, their relentless assault pushing the president and his remaining allies to the brink of exhaustion. But for President Natsu, retreat was not an option. With every fiber of his being, he remained committed to the fight, his determination unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. With each passing moment, his resolve only grew stronger, fueled by a steadfast belief in the righteousness of his cause and a fierce determination to protect his nation at any cost. And as he stood amidst the chaos of battle, his machete held aloft in a silent declaration of defiance, President Natsu knew that the fate of guerrillas hung in the balance. But with courage in his heart and the strength of his convictions as his guide, he remained unwavering in his determination to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. As the battle raged on, the once cohesive unit of secret agents found themselves confronted with a chilling display of adaptability from the hyenas. These predators, renowned for their cunning and predatory instincts, had swiftly adjusted their tactics, spreading out across the battlefield like a lethal net closing in on its prey. The hyenas' new strategy was a chilling testament to their efficiency and ruthlessness. With precision born of years of predatory instinct, they targeted the shoulders and flanks of the secret agents, exploiting the vulnerabilities exposed by their dispersed formation. Each shot fired was a calculated strike aimed at weakening the defensive line of the president's group, sowing chaos and confusion amidst their ranks. For the secret agents, once a unified force, the sudden shift in tactics posed a daunting challenge. Their hallmark strategy of protecting one another with machetes proved ineffective against the relentless barrage of gunfire unleashed by their adversaries. As bullets tore through the air with deadly accuracy, the agents found themselves scrambling to adapt, their once cohesive formation disintegrating under the relentless assault. The president's group, now reduced to a mere fraction of its former strength, fought on with grim determination. Each member of the dwindling team knew the stakes were high, and failure was not an option. But as the hyenas pressed their advantage, the odds seemed increasingly insurmountable, and despair threatened to engulf the beleaguered defenders. Amidst the chaos and carnage of the battlefield, the hyenas displayed a chilling resolve that sent shivers down the spines of their adversaries. Even as their numbers dwindled, there was no hint of surrender in their spirit. Their eyes burned with a cold, unyielding determination, untouched by the death and destruction that surrounded them. To them, the battle was a test of wills, a trial by fire that would determine the fate of guerrillas. In stark contrast, the president's group fought on against the odds, their determination unshaken by the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Though battered and bruised, they stood as a beacon of defiance amidst the chaos, their resolve unyielding in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. In the shadows of this relentless conflict, the struggle for survival unfolded with an intensity that mirrored the very essence of the unforgiving battleground. In the aftermath of the brutal clash, the once serene landscape surrounding the Kodo orphanage was now a haunting tableau of violence and despair. The chilling reality set in as the dust settled. The hyenas had secured their dominance, leaving devastation in their wake. Amidst the wreckage, the two remaining secret agents lay battered and broken, their bodies a testament to the ferocity of the battle that had unfolded. As the echoes of gunfire faded into the distance, a heavy silence descended upon the scene, broken only by the labored breaths of the injured. The president, though grievously wounded, summoned the last vestiges of his strength, his resolve unyielding even in the face of imminent death. With a desperate effort, he hurled the machete towards Jus, a futile gesture that fell short mere steps away. Jus, a figure shrouded in darkness and cruelty, ordered a ceasefire with chilling indifference. With calculated precision, he approached the president and the incapacitated Secret Service agents, his movements deliberate and devoid of mercy. Retrieving the discarded machete, he began a slow advance towards the president, his words dripping with malice and contempt. "I will behead the remaining two secret agents for you to watch," Jus taunted, his voice laced with cruel satisfaction. "And you will suffer briefly before death claims you once more after I sever your head." The president, though consumed by anger and pain, stood defiant, his gaze unwavering even in the face of impending doom. With a plea for mercy born of desperation, he implored Jus to spare the lives of the remaining agents. "Just kill me and spare them," he pleaded, his voice tinged with resignation. "They still have families to worry about. You can use any method to kill me." But Jus, a creature devoid of understanding or empathy, remained unmoved by the president's words. "I don't have a family," he retorted coldly. "I don't understand the feeling of a family. I will use this machete to cut off your head." With the precision that only a Zeep steel machete could afford, Jus moved with ruthless efficiency. In a swift and brutal motion, he severed the head of the first secret agent, the blade slicing through flesh and bone with ease. The grisly act sent a shiver down the spine of all who bore witness, a grim reminder of the merciless nature of their adversary. Undeterred by the horror unfolding before him, Jus proceeded with cold determination to the second agent, his movements methodical and devoid of remorse. With a single stroke, he replicated the ruthless act, leaving another lifeless body in his wake. The president's roars of anguish reverberated through the air, a haunting symphony of despair that echoed even beyond the confines of the orphanage grounds. In the aftermath of Jus' brutality, the landscape bore witness to a scene of unspeakable horror. The bodies of the fallen lay scattered amidst the rubble, their blood staining the earth with a dark, crimson hue. The air was heavy with the weight of sorrow and loss, a palpable sense of despair hanging over the once peaceful orphanage. As Jus stood amidst the carnage, a twisted smile played across his lips, a grotesque reflection of the satisfaction he derived from his cruel deeds. For him, the bloodshed was a means to an end, a demonstration of power and dominance over those who dared to oppose him. And as he surveyed the scene before him, he knew that his reign of terror had only just begun.